top of the table.
Oh my god, she must have noticed I'm wearing the same dress as hers. Now she'd think I did this deliberately. Damn, I spelled procrastination wrong in my email. Now everyone is going to make fun of it behind my back. Oh god, I have got this bad crease in my cotton sari. Now everyone's going to notice that when I enter office. So stupid of me to not pronounce infidelity correctly. Now this will be a standing joke for months to come with everyone. You must have heard your friends saying this, or probably you must have been in these situations yourself. But the big question is, how long does this thing and this thought stay with you? For a few minutes, not to worry. If it stays for days, then there is a possibility that you might be experiencing the spotlight effect. Hello and a very warm welcome to Top of the Table. I'm your host Sheetal Sharma, and joining me in this discussion is the very lovely Jaswandi Sehasrabuddhe. Hello, beautiful Jaswandi.
Hello, Sheetal. And I would say I'm very happy and flattered to get this compliment from you of saying that, oh, I'm beautiful. I was actually blushing, to be honest. So I really liked the way you said it. So, Sheetal, when you were talking about how misspelling something or doing something just stays with you throughout the day or even for the weeks, and you start thinking too much about it. Yes, you're right. That's something called a spotlight effect. So, what everything that you just said about being overly conscious about what people think or that people are talking about you is what we call a spotlight effect. Basically, it is the tendency we have to overestimate how much other people notice us, but like how much of spotlight is on us. In other words, we tend to think that there is a spotlight or a light on us every time, like we are the center where everyone is looking at. Basically, we are high when we do mistakes, when there's some flaws, we think that the world is just looking at us and our mistakes and thinking about how bad or terrible we are. So I would say to a certain extent a victim of spotlight effect, but I'll surely share my examples in the podcast coming ahead.
So, Jaswandi, honestly, when I think about it, when you're constantly consumed by these thoughts, I think it must be putting so much of pressure on you and functioning normally on a day-to-day basis because you're constantly thinking what the other person is thinking about you.
And Sheetal, like, yes, it puts pressure and it is very energy draining because, you are just thinking about the fact that people are talking about you, and then you get into a loop. Like, for example, I know people, I have spoken to people, I have clients with whom I'm working, and they keep on talking about how they look. Really, they feel that, okay, I look very terrible, or something that I wear does not suit me, and that becomes such a big concern in their lives in terms of their daily function. I was working with a client for whom choosing one dress in the morning used to take good 40-45 minutes. Sheetal, can you imagine just choosing a dress taking such a long time? You have to actually plan your day accordingly, keeping the 45 minutes in hand, and that is even time consuming and even consuming in terms of your energy. You keep just thinking about it, which leads to a lot of other thoughts as well.
I'm sure, Jaswandi. And, I was also very intrigued, Jaswandi, after reading about Spotlight Effect, to be very honest. And I wonder, is Spotlight Effect a result of social anxiety? Or is social anxiety Spotlight Effect in itself?
Yeah. So I would say social anxiety and spotlight effect, yes, are connected, but spotlight effect is an element of social anxiety. It is not spotlight effect that caters to the entire social anxiety. So, you know what, Sheetal? A person with social anxiety many a time experiences spotlight effect as compared to rest of us. However, social anxiety, a person who experiences a spotlight effect at certain times might not always have social anxiety. It might be very episodic in nature, it might be very specific in terms of how I look or what I do or what I say. But I would say, again, as I said, social anxiety is a broader spectrum. On the other hand, spotlight effect is an element of social anxiety. So it is believed, that the spotlight effect comes, as I said, from being overly conscious as well, not being able to put yourself in other person's shoe by thinking that okay, that person also might have different perspective, and it's not that the person is judging me, or I am being I'm being like actually judged or criticized. Social anxiety is much more, I would say, rather than just the nervousness or self-conscious behavior. It is much more in terms of the intensity.
But Jaswant, is it only prevalent in those with social anxiety? See, for instance, if I take my example, now I do not have any social anxiety, but I'm the kind of person, where I was talking about, someone whose cotton sari got creased and was worried about entering office. I am that person, I mean, I cannot step out without my clothes properly ironed and me looking a certain way, a certain presentable way, to be very honest. But, this was pre baby phase. And post baby phase, I can either only concentrate on getting out of the house, or I can get concentrated about the fact that my clothes are creased or not, because irrespective whether they are ironed or not, they end up getting creased. So did at maybe pre baby phase had spotlight effect?
To answer this question, Sheetal, I would say every one of us, I'm sure all the listeners also, have some time, as I said, situational episodic, sometime experience this spotlight effect. However, I would say, rather than terming it or naming it as spotlight effect, I would say it was more of a self conscious action rather than thinking about what people will actually say. But let's take your example, Sheetal, when you said that okay, I was always concerned about my clothes being well ironed and without crease. That was only situation based. It was not that you do whatever else, you think okay, people are going to judge me, people are talking about me, people are saying oh how bad she's looking, how terrible she's looking, she's just a mess. You were concerned about the way you look because you liked it in a certain way, and not because you were scared that people will judge you, right? So uh, as I mentioned earlier, it is the trait or element of social anxiety or awkwardness, and it is different from general worrying. We worry because we feel we need to be presentable. As you said, you always wanted to be presentable in terms of what you wear and how you carry yourself. But all of us worry about something. As I said, it will be different. Worrying can be different, and spotlight effect can be different, because when you are into a spotlight effect, you are only pre-consumed with that thought for a very long time. Like in my case, I also completely agree to what you said, Sheetal. In my case as well, I look into the mirror 3 to 4 times before going out of the house, because I feel oh, I should be looking good, I should be presentable. People should not feel like oh, she's so badly dressed, like she's such a mess. People should not feel that way. However, I do not carry this thought throughout the day. Now the difference is, a person with spotlight effect might carry this thought throughout the day and might keep looking into the mirror like every minute or every hour. So spotlight effect is where, as I said, it consumes your energy, it affects your daily functions, and it is completely different from your general worrying or general self conscious behavior, which is very episodic.
And it's constantly like, someone is has their eyes just on you, watching you all the time, and that is a very unsettling feeling, to be very honest, isn't it?
And I would say, Sheetal, it's very uncomfortable, even the thought of it. Because, I'm sure, like, even we, if when we look at someone, we do not, okay, we might say, oh, this person would have looked good if she would have paired it with this type of jeans. However, we do not keep talking about that person continuously. So if you see in spotlight effect, the person feels that people around me are talking continuously about me, and that leads to a lot of assumptions or say anticipation that this might happen, which is very uncomfortable. And I would say, Sheetal, it is so uh, distressing to a certain extent, because what you're doing is you're just thinking about the thought of what people are thinking about you, wherein people might just talk for a second or a minute and just move on. But for you, you think, oh, people are talking about me for hours and hours.
And just one thing, when you were talking about people constantly looking at you and people talking about you, this is one instance that has happened in my life, and I think I've narrated this incident to you personally as well, but I'll just repeat it for our listeners. So I was back in my college days. I was doing this course in computer science, and I would travel a great deal to get to my institute and to my college. So I generally used to hitch a ride with one of my uncles, and one of my uncles was a very young guy, kind of used to ride a bike and everything. So I went with him one day, and it unfortunately rained that day, and the one side of my dress got completely slathered with mud. Now I didn't realize till I stepped out of the bike, and when I stepped off the bike, I realized that one side of my dress was had splatters of mud on it. Okay, now it became even more difficult for me because I didn't have any way to go back home and change my clothes and come back, because it was a long distance. And apart from that, the other friend of mine who stayed close by to the institute, she was also busy with her own stuff, and she had already left home, so I couldn't go to her place either. Then that day was supposed to be the day when I had to give a presentation, and I was supposed to be evaluated basis that. It so happened that when I thought about the presentation and I looked around, all my colleagues and my peers, I just kept thinking that, all of them can see the splatters of mud on my clothes, and oh my God, how I'm going to give the presentation. Oh my God, how things are going to go fine. I'm going to get very bad numbers, and all those negative things, kind of came into my head. The worst case, that my brain built in its own imaginary world about how things are going to pan out. However, what happened was that, I decided that today my presentation is going to be such that no one is going to take off their eyes from my face, you know. And I made sure that while I was giving that presentation in front of some 40 odd people, I made eye contact with each of them so that no one could notice that mud on my clothes. And to be very honest, Jaswandi, that was the first presentation that I was giving in my life. And that was the presentation which actually got me the best of the grades that time. And I was applauded by everyone for an amazing presentation. Okay, so somehow I tried and I got myself out of that loop of thinking of what people are thinking about me, of how they're perceiving me, how they're looking at me, how my clothes are dirty, and I tried focusing their attention on something which was better at that point in time. But to think of a person, who has spotlight effect and who possibly went through this entire incident, themselves, I think that that person, it would have been traumatizing for them. I can't even imagine the anguish that that person would go through in such a scenario.
And Sheetal, just to add to it, when you said about traumatic, at times, spotlight effect stems from a traumatic event, because as I've always been talking about, trauma does have a lot of extreme effects, because I believe spotlight effect also stems from trauma, and a traumatic event can all develop spotlight effect as well. So if I have to actually tell you, Sheetal, what happened with you if a person with spotlight effect had to actually experience the same thing, I cannot tell you how difficult that would have been for that person. And I'm sure a person with spotlight effect would not have even gone for the presentation, because for him or her or they, it is like people are going to judge me for life. It's not just during the presentation, it's like people are going to talk about how dirty her dress was for the next couple of years. And that thought in itself takes all your confidence or everything so down that you cannot stand up, and you start feeling so helpless and hopeless, which gives rise to other mental health challenges as well.
Absolutely, Jaswandi. But you were talking about trauma, Jaswandi. So are we talking about something like a PTSD, or are we talking about, childhood experiences here?
I would say PTSD, Sheetal, like I would say, rather than severe form of a clinical PTSD, I would say it is more about the traumatic experiences that were not comfortable, and that led, a scar somewhere. When I'll give you a small example, a memory card. Okay, we all of us have used memory cards. we keep on adding photos and memories and music and everything in this memory card, but there is a time when you get the notification as of the memory is full, or you need to delete few things to make up space to have anything added in the memory card. So if I have to tell you in that comparison, memory card and your trauma is same. If you do not take out the scar experiences, or the memories that have certain scar, you will have to delete it later with therapy or by talking to someone. So I would say, when I said about trauma, it is more about the traumatic experiences rather than the post traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, what we generally call it as.
So, just one day, let's say that someone is battling with spotlight effect. Now, what is the way forward for them? How do they treat it or make it better? And is there a possibility of that?
Yes. So, Sheetal, I would say there are two ways. And the most important aspect to look into this is to actually go and consult a therapist or a professional who can help you out to actually manage or come out of the spotlight effect and actually improve your lifestyle or the way you live. Because, as we discussed, spotlight effect can have adverse effects on your daily functions as well. So start with, I would say there are two ways during which, during the therapy, a therapist will help you to overcome it by using these two ways. The first one, which we generally call, is illusion of transparency. Now, what is illusion of transparency? It is nothing but a technique that asserts that people tend to think that their internal state, for example, how I feel, if I'm feeling that I'm looking messy, I feel that it is visible for others. And when it's truly it's not, right? People cannot see how you are feeling or what you are thinking. Basically, you can overcome the spotlight effect by actually focusing attention outwards rather than focusing attention inwards. That is, out, when I say focusing attention outwards, you can actually look at people's reactions, and oh, okay, I feel I'm looking like a mess, but people's reaction don't tell me that. People are not reacting that in that extreme way that I feel I bad about myself. So here, what you're doing is, you're not feeling that, okay, what I feel is what people feel too. I'm saying what people are giving reaction, or what people are doing or saying, is what I actually start thinking. So this, what will happen because of this will help you to stop focusing inward in terms of your anxiety, in terms of your negative thoughts, and you will start noticing how people are actually not paying attention to you. People are just, okay, on the face of it, people are not going to look at you and say, oh, you're looking like a mess, or not give you a reaction like that. So basically, you're looking at the outward reaction rather than the inward reaction. The second technique that I would say, Sheetal, is actually, another way can be to check your beliefs. Basically, when I say checking your beliefs, if I say, okay, if, let's take your example, your belief was that people are just going to look at you. But when you actually changed your belief by saying, okay, I want people to look into my eyes or look at me and not on what I'm wearing, you changed your belief by saying, okay, I'm not looking terrible, I'm going to give my presentation my best. And that really helped you out, right? When you changed your belief, you were able to score really well as compared to what you scored earlier. So these are the two ways which I would say, during therapy, a therapist can really help you out. And not just a therapist, but if you feel you are in the initial stages of spotlight effect, you yourself can give it a try. And I'm sure, to a certain extent, you will be able to benefit from these techniques.
Thank you so much, Jaswandi, for all this information. And thank you, listeners, for joining us. And we hope that all the information that we have been sharing with you and we shared in this episode is going to help you out getting and bringing you closer to your happier self.